All right, we're going to talk about some horses. I don't know what else to do today. I mean, my day is totally thrown off. So my nephew and I ended up at the Santa Claus parade, so that was pretty fun. My nephew chickened out. I wonder why he chickened out. And then I was telling my aunt, he's like, "Oh, next time though, if he wants that gift, she was, I'm going to give him a talk, and the next time there, he's going to have to go up and sit on Santa's knee." I said, "I know." I said, "I'm going to tease him that he chickened out." I said, "But he probably won't do it because last time I teased him when he was on Santa's knee." So he's kind of shy, right? He's still. I'm trying to get him out of his shell a little bit, like whatever, and to be more outgoing and stuff like that. But you know what kids are like? They're all shy at that age, 12 years old. Anyway, fun times. But horses, okay. Me getting horse. So, like I was saying in my previous video, after I was talking about the the police mystery that I got going on in my life right now. Helicopters flying over my house, police cruisers coming up the lane, visit by the police for the first time ever, like 10 o'clock at night, last night. It's like, okay, uh, hopefully you guys will get to see this video before I go to jail for something. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to go to jail. But, it all has to do with that trailer I got rid of. But anyway, who knows? I'm just like, okay, what's it really about? I can't wait to talk to the other officer. It's like, no, I sold that thing 2.5 years ago. I have nothing to do with it. Whatever it is, I'm not guilty. I did nothing. I did nothing. But anyway, what I did do though is I've dealt with horses a little bit in my life. I have ridden horses mainly as a kid. I went on my mom. I'll start with my mom. God rest her. There's pictures of my mom and my aunt on a bunch of horses. And I remember my mom said she had a Palomino, right? And whatever. And my mom was like 16, whatever. This picture goes back to like the 1960s or whatever. Maybe even the early 1970s. Well, probably late 1960s. And my mom was born in the 50s, right? And anyway, she loved horses. My mom grew up on a farm. My mom worked like a she worked they worked her to death. You know what I mean? Like, she grew up on a farm, but she loved the horses. Like the horses was her thing. I don't think they had a lot of horses, but they had a couple of horses. So the horses were her thing. And she never really talked about the horses that much, unless you asked about it, right? But it was always something that whenever my mom would see a horse, she'd be like, "Oh, look at that beautiful horse." And then she'd say, "Oh, I remember my horse. Oh, I miss that horse." You know what I mean? Because people create bonds with it. These are pets. These are a little more than pets. Like a dog, you don't ride your dog around, right? But a horse allows you to get on its back, right? And you got to think about this. A horse is basically predator food, right? So you're going to get on its back where it would most likely be attacked by a mountain lion, a bear, a wolf, or whatever. You're going to be right on his neck back and where he can't see you, right? And he's got to trust you enough to get in that position where he's the most vulnerable, where he can get eaten alive, right? So you have to create a bond with a horse, or that horse is going to be crazy on you, right? Now, Chum, God rest him, he had some crazy horses. Junior had some crazy horses, and I'll tell you about those horses. I've always been I like horses, but I don't trust them because it's not that I don't trust the horses in general. It's I need to know the owner of that horse in the sense of how are they treating these horses because not everybody treats them well. But anyway, when I was a kid, there's a picture of my sister and I don't know how old I was, maybe 5, and that was probably my first horseback ride, right? Maybe 7, whatever. And I got my little cowboy hat on. My sister's got a cowboy hat on. We're out west. I believe we're out west. Not one. Uh, yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was out west. Anyway, we're on these horses, and I wanted to see if I could find a photo, and you can see like me as a little cowboy. You have to understand, growing up as a kid in the '70s, cowboy movies, westerns were. I love a good western. I love a good western. I really do. Clint Eastwood fan, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you watch the stuff now; it's a little bit funny, and it was at the time. But at the time, it was great, right? So Lone Ranger stuff, you know what I mean. You liked all that stuff, and then of course, as you get older, like you get movies like Tombstone, which were just freaking I love that movie. That movie is so good. I used to love that show, Lonesome Dove. I love. They made a book on it. I don't know if it's the Lonesome Dove was a spin off of that, but everybody liked the book. But I liked the TV show. It went from like happy go lucky to like really, really, really dark. It was a great show. It was called Lonesome Dove. Main character was named Cole. But anyway, yeah, Clint Eastwood stuff. I love that, all that. So, and riding a horse on a trail or whatever. I rode an elephant when I was a kid. I remember my dad said he goes that elephant didn't look right. He goes my sister and I and a bunch of other kids were up on this elephant, riding it around Elmvale Acres, on a little like a little circus. And it goes like, yeah, like that elephant didn't look like sane. And that I remember being on the elephant. I was small. I was big enough to obviously be on an elephant. And then after that, they're like, yeah, we're never putting them on an elephant again, because like that elephant was about to snap or something, right? I don't know. I was a kid. I just remember being on the like in that little kind of cart thing that they put everybody in. You sat on and they walked around with this elephant, right? But I remember being on the horses. I don't remember much about it. I just remember being on it. I don't remember the trail or anything like that. I was too small, right? But I do remember my mom was on one horse, my sister was on one horse, and I was on one horse. And I don't know how long we rode for, whatever. I just remember we were on them. Maybe we just went around like a little pen or something. I really don't know. All I know is there's still a picture existing from that time. And that was my first kind of encounters with a horse. Now, when you're 5 and you're on a horse, you might as well be up in the clouds, right? That's a huge, massive animal. Like that is a giant to you when you're that small, right? But I had my cowboy, my little cap gun or something, I'm sure, with me. I'm sure my mom would have taken it away from me because she knows I would have probably fired it and the horse would have taken off with me on it. Yeah. Yeah, I would do something that stupid. I know I was a stupid kid. I was more mischievous than stupid, but my stupid points were really, really stupid, where it's like, how am I still alive? You know what I mean? So yeah, take the cap gun away from the kid. He's going to freak out the horses. So I remember that, and then horses and petting zoos and stuff like that. And then my earliest memories up here, stable out here, was Barney. Barney was the first horse I really remember, because he was here for the first 12 years of my life, right? And Barney was an interesting horse. He was so interesting because I loved him, the kids loved him, but he was like this horse that had a stubborn streak in him, but yet he was one of the best workhorses my grandfather said he ever had. My dad said they had, like, growing up, they peeled poplar and cut, that's how they got the wood out of the bush, right? My dad basically grew up on a homestead. This was a homestead. That wall there, parts of that wall are probably about 200 years old, 150, 200 years old. This is a very old place. Not all of it, like the house was built and modified in sections over the years. But they would go to the bush with these horses, and then eventually my grandfather got Barney. And Barney was a brown horse, really stocky. I don't even know if we have any pictures of him. I hope I do. I'd love to find a picture of Barney. I'd love to find a picture of him. Again, as a kid, when you look at this horse, he was almost as wide as he was tall, but he was a short, stocky bastard of a horse. And he was friendly, but he would nip from time to time. You had to be careful around him. He didn't have crazy eyes. He would come to you. You could pet him on the nose, and as long as you fed him, he was good. He would hug you a little bit. He was friendly, but he was a workhorse. He wasn't a play toy, right? If you got into this is Barney. He had the stable, the barn, okay, all that area there, that was all fenced off. All the way to the front of the house up there, all the way back almost to where the store is, okay, fenced, all the way back there. We're talking like a couple of hundred acres to roam free. Grass, wheat, straw, hay, anything a horse's heart would desire. No, not good enough. Jump the fence, eat the grass right in front of the house here. My grandfather would get mad. Put him back in there. 5 minutes later, like this stocky little horse, you'd never see him. I've never seen him jump the fence, but he would get out, and he jumped the fence. My dog Duke at the time. Oh, I miss that dog. He was the best dog. The nicest dog ever, but him and Barney didn't get along. And what Duke would do, he was a collie, a big collie. And he'd go up and he would sneak up behind Barney and nip him on the heels. And Barney would be after him trying to stomp him. And you'd see them run through the field. And they did this all the time. You couldn't stop one going after the other, right? They would just do this all the time, right? And I think poor Duke might have got hoofed once or twice there, because I remember a few times you see him, he looked pretty sore. He didn't move for a couple of days there. Probably got kicked or whatever. But he was always nipping at Barney's heels just to piss him off, right? So sometimes if you were out in the middle of the field, I remember my cousin Butt and I, we're like out in the middle of the field, like just thunder. Like we're looking up at the clouds, we're looking, here's Barney just charged out the two, both of us just split. My cousin Butt runs into the cornfield there. I dived over the fence, barbed wire fence here, tumble, roll, cut myself, I was like that. And then Barney just comes walking over. He just wanted to be petted, but we heard him running at us as hard as he could go. And we saw him coming. And he'd do this to us all the time. We'd never tell him, grandma and grandfather, because we didn't want to get Barney in trouble. But then we'd go and see how close we could get to him. So my cousin Butch said, let's try to ride him. And you think he knew what we were up to, and I'd pet him, and then my cousin would go to jump out, and he'd move. Stuff like that. And so I got on him. I don't know how I got on him. I think I went and got a milk crate or something. I got on him, and I couldn't stay on him. And he didn't walk or he wouldn't do anything, but he kind of like just kind of shuffle around, kind of like, get off me, little prick, right? On that. So it's like, okay, well, I'll try to ride him. And we're trying to go bareback on this workhorse that's this freaking wide. Like, I swear to God, he was that wide at the shoulders. His short little stocky horse, he was like that. His head, like his neck was like massive. Like he was just this stocky little horse. And he wasn't a Clydesdale. He wasn't a like a Shire horse or anything. He was just this what they call what do they call the mixed horses with no pedigree? Basically it's the Heinz 57, right? We had no idea what it is. Brown horse with a little bit of white on. Some probably a little bit of a paint, but he was pretty much predominantly brown, dark, like a nice. What would be the closest brown? Like my chair. He was but the chair or the table, about that kind of a brown, maybe a little bit lighter, in between like the table and the chair there. He was somewhere in between that, and then a dark brown mane, whatever, white here, and then a little bit of gray on his nose. And I remember we used to tickle his nose and get the teeth going or whatever. He never bit me. He nipped at me once. He nipped at a few people. But he never bit anybody that I know of. But he wasn't a pet. He wasn't a toy. He was a workhorse. But he was pretty darn tame. So I did get on his back. I couldn't ride him. I couldn't get him to go. Couldn't get him to do anything. He just kind of like kept doing this, like stepping in like kind of just like that. And he was just kind of like, he wasn't having it. So I got off him. My cousin tried to get on him again. And every time the horse would take off 10, 15 feet, we'd go up to him. Finally, he was up to what, he knew what we were up to. 10, 15 feet, whatever. But if we went out in the middle of the field, he'd run right at us every single time. And as hard as he could come to, it was like, so we don't know if he was going to trample us or whatever. Maybe he thought we were going to, but if he saw Duke with us, which Duke was always with us, him and Duke would start to chase each other around, right? And you'd see Duke there just run under the fence or just barely get like, there was one time I saw like dog hair on the edge of Barney's hoof. Like he got close. I'm sure he must have kicked Duke quite a few times there. But like again, Duke was the nicest dog. Friendly kids could jump on him. My cousin, well, he's a full grown man right there. Him and his sister would be on, and my other cousin, they'd be on Duke there. They'd stick their thumb in his eye and mouth like a little kid. Was that? Dip Marvin. And I think Marvin's making a racket out there. Better not be in here. But anyway, yeah, so Anyway, so But and I, we gave up on trying to ride Barney. What you doing out there, Marvin? He's probably out here. Making a racket. Marvin, are you? Where? Oh, there you are. What are you doing over there? Hey, buddy. What are you doing over there? Stop making the noise. I'm making a video. Oh, he just went outside. Anyway, I don't know how he fit through that hole. He's getting so fat. Maybe I'll try to ride Marvin around there. Put a little saddle on him. You know, be like Marvin and Reg, the Mouse Slayers. Yeah, that'd be a great adventure story. I thought about writing a book about Marvin. Seriously, just a little quirkiness of him. But anyway, so that was that. We couldn't ride Barney. We weren't going to play the Lone Ranger. We weren't going to use Barney, and my grandfather would never allow us to ride Barney, I'm sure. But Barney was really stubborn, right? When he didn't want to move, you couldn't get him to move. So my grandfather had a love-hate relationship. But said when he worked, he was the best workhorse in the world. He was just like in the bush, drawing out logs and stuff like that, right? And my grandfather, when I was a kid, he was no longer using the horses. He had the tractor by this time, right? And long story short, the love-hate relationship between Barney and my grandfather was this. My grandfather, okay, again, you have to understand, like, my grandfather was in World War II. He was born in 1901 or 1900. I can't remember. 1901 or 1900. My grandmother born a little bit later, right? So anyway, my grandfather, he had a car, right? Now the car, you have to understand, like, there was no hydro in this house until probably about the 1970s or early 1980s. I remember my grandmother talking about, oh yeah, my mom and dad, oh, how do you like hydro now? Oh, we love it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, like, because they grew up in the, in the early 1900s, right? So they lived their whole lives without power. My dad grew up without power. Stuff like that, right? My dad grew up in this house, right? So they grew up without power. All my aunts and uncles grew up in this house and no power. So they had a car, but you didn't just drive the car around willy-nilly. My grandfather would take the horse and buggy to the neighboring town. It'd take him all day, but he would do that just to save the gas, right? Because it was cheaper to run the horse. That's what poor people did back then, right? That wasn't uncommon. And, not only that, the roads here weren't the best anyway. So, it was basically just dirt trails through here that wasn't really a highway until much later on. Just a little bit maybe before I was born, maybe a decade before I was born, they put in the highway. So, Barney, obviously, my grandfather, I think he took him to the neighboring town once or twice. Him and one of my clients, her husband, who is deceased now, they would sometimes take the team of horses. They'd take this horse, Dale's horse, and my grandfather's horse, and they'd, hook them together, and then they go to the neighboring town, grab supplies, and come back. Right? That was what they did. And I don't know how many times they would have done that with Barney, because I think Barney was the last horse, right? So my grandfather was starting to get out of, up until the day he died, pretty much he, cut his own stove wood and stuff like that. But the days of cutting down the trees with the axe and stuff like that, that was, he wasn't doing that anymore. But he still liked using the horse in the bush. Most of the old guys, when I was a kid around here, they had tractors. They all had tractors. But they only used the tractors for what work that the horses couldn't do. Right? And then, you grow up that way. That's, it's what you know, and you're going to do that. So anyway, Barney more or less just became a dormant horse, where just he's not working in the bush anymore. He's just, jumping around over the fence, getting the grass, taking my grandfather off. We'd have to put him back in the behind the pen, a couple of times a day. You know what I mean? But my grandfather had this old car. It was a green car. I couldn't tell you what it was. Push button. It was early 60s car, right? And you took the car to church on Sunday. You took it for grocery runs and the odd occasional thing. Other than that, you took the horse and buggy, right? If it was local, you took to the store, horse and buggy. I'm sure my grandfather ran the horse and buggy a gazillion times, different horses, whatever, to the store and back, right? Uh, but he had the window down in this car, and Barney jumped the fence and he chewed the seat. He just massacred the driver's seat, right? No other reason than he could, just no reason other than he could. My grandfather was going to kill him. He was so mad. This is a little bit before my time. And I remember my dad telling me, "Oh yeah, like Barney wouldn't go near him for about a week. My grandfather was so bad." Well, when I was a kid, I guess that happened before I was born. My dad told me about it, and when I was a kid, though, my grandfather, I remember he had just bought a nice cushy seat for his 8N Ford tractor, right? Those little tractors, always front wheels up in the air all the time because they're so short. I love those little tractors. They're great. Good little bush tractor, like for stove wood and stuff like that. Again, not a powerhouse, but, fun enough. And anyway, I don't even think he had that thing for a couple of hours. And Barney had jumped the fence, and my cousin, my sister, and I were here. My brother wasn't born yet, and we're looking. It's like, oh, Grandpa, I think the horse ate your seat. Oh my God, he was so mad. Same thing. Barney took off. He couldn't catch him. He knew he was in trouble. He stayed in that backfield there probably for a week. He's like he knew he was in trouble. He knew what he did. He knew what he did. And then a couple of years after that, my grandfather finally made the decision to get it. I was kind of sad when he got rid of Barney because Barney was he was always here. Like when we came up from my mom and dad and I came up, and my sister came up from town, the first thing my sister and I would do is go see Barney because he'd be waiting for us at the gate, right? A lot of times, my grandfather said, "Don't walk behind Barney because he might kick you." You know what I mean? Like he's a workhorse. He's not used to having kids running around him and stuff like that. So don't play around Barney. Just go pet him and whatever. And I'd pet him and whatever, and you'd play with his nose or whatever, and he'd like it, and you'd pet him and pet him and pet him. Then one day, my mom just took a craving to ride horses. And she was telling me and my sister, my dad, I think he was at work or whatever. And Barney was up in the field there, because it was all gated in. I mean, the original fence is probably, God knows how old that fence would be, right there. It went to the road there and then up in front of our house and the whole way, up on the tree line or whatever. And that's what kept the cows in and all that. But anyway, Barney was in that one and in that pen, and that pen's big. It goes right up to my cousins, right? Goes right to the corner of the back field. We're talking, probably about 50 acres right here, whatever it is, all in. And Barney came to us. My mom, my sister was a little bit older. She was almost a teenager at this time, I'm sure. Anyway, my mom rode Barney around bareback a little bit, and then she got off and she let my sister go on there. And because there was only one horse, so what my mom did is she put the bridle on, whatever, and then she said, "Okay, yeah, this is how you turn them by the mane and stuff like that." Because my mom used to ride the horses bareback and stuff like that, so they were poor. They didn't have saddles, right? Stuff like that. So you rode a horse, you just jumped on the damn thing and went away you went, right? So my mom rode him around for a little bit, maybe about 10 minutes or whatever. And Barney was actually receptive to it. He was, again, a big, it was funny to see my mom on this horse this wide, right? So she's like, "Okay, well, you want to get on him?" I said, "Okay, yeah." So I got on him, but this is the second time I'd been on this horse. And it's like, again, he got wider. So I got on him. My mom had him by the bridle. She says, "Okay, I'm going to run with him a little bit." You know what I mean? Just if you want him to stop, just pull on his mane or whatever. And he started running, and that is his, basically backbone was banging me right in the nuts, right? So I'm like, "Oh, no, slow." And my mom was laughing at me because I was getting bounced around pretty hard here. This horse was not meant to that. But I had a feeling, though, if you had a saddle on him and you got him to go, that horse could run hard. And I mean hard. I'd seen him going flat out after, just in the field, just going like grease lightning for no reason other than that he could. So for such a short stock, it's just the power he had. You knew he was a very powerful horse. Like when you lift his leg to check out his hoof or whatever, it was like like I'd done it on other horses at friends' places and stuff like that by this time. A friend of mine had Clydesdales and stuff like that. In Belgians, you had Clydesdales and Belgians. You pick up their, like when you go to get them to pick up their paw, like you know you got a lot of weight in your hand, right? Well, Barney felt not that heavy, but like that, and it was just kind of, it's just solid. He's holding it there. If he wants to put his foot down, you ain't going to stop him. You know what I mean? But when he took off on me a little bit, when I was on him, like I started bouncing just a little too high off him, and I don't think he liked it either. So I got down. My mom just killing herself laughing. God rest her. But I don't think she's ever laughed at me that hard. Again, it was just like, oh yeah, I just told my dad all about it. My dad just shook his head. He's like, oh, it's not a riding horse. It's a friggin' workhorse. You're not supposed to ride him, right? And by this time, my grandfather's been long gone. God rest him. But then my mom and I, my dad, and I don't know if my sister or it was my brother was me. My brother, if it was my brother, he was small, and we were coming back from town for whatever reason. I was with them, and we took the Camp Fortune route, the old way, because my dad wanted to, take the scenic way, and we saw a bunch of horses and said horses for sale, and there was these really skinny horses. And we went and looked at them. They were $600 a piece. And my mom was starting to get the idea that maybe I want a horse. Maybe I want a horse. My dad's like, I don't know if I want to get a horse. And my sister and my sister didn't care, but I was like, yeah, I'd help you look after a horse. I like horses, whatever. And we got out and we looked at the horses. I remember these horses. There was something wrong with their eyes. You could tell there was something wrong with them. They had a bit of a sickly look to them. They were nice horses. You could pet them and everything like that. Really skinny. They would have been good riding horses. They were a bit bigger than a pony. They were brown, whatever, and I can't remember exactly the colors of them, but I know they were kind of brown, similar to what Barney was. And maybe that's what my mom was thinking, because Barney was gone by this time, and it's like, well, maybe we'll take over the barn and the stable and whatever. And my grandmother wouldn't have cared. We had pigs in there, so again, maybe next year I get pigs in there again, and chickens and all that. So if you have chickens and pigs, you might as well get a horse. You know what I mean. I think the fence was still up at that time, or whatever, but it wouldn't matter. Like, we have all this property to ride on, right? Anyway, we looked at the horses, and my dad's just like, no, there's something wrong with these horses. They don't look healthy, And I felt so bad for them. It bugged my dad a lot, and it bugged my mom too, because when we got in, like, we knew these horses weren't treated properly. Like, you could tell they just, I don't know, it was their eyes were just like, the lids around their eyes were like, you could really see them. They were not puffy, but just looked like their eyes were kind of sunken in a bit, and they seemed like horses that were like, they were probably abused. Obviously they were abused at some, or malnourished or whatever. They were pretty skinny, whatever, and it was just like, it was sad to see them, but it's like, my dad's like, well, yeah, but $1,200 worth of horses when we don't have the money, and how we're going to take care of them. And horses are expensive, and it's like, yes, it's a nice idea to try to take care of them, but that's probably why they're being sold in the first place. Somebody got them, and they realized horses are really freaking expensive to take care of. Even the cheap ones, even the most expensive horse you can get is a free horse, and every horse after that is more expensive. That's exactly how it works. So we didn't get those horses, and I was a teenager, I think, still at the time, and my buddy, his dad, he worked a team of Belgians and Clydesdales. And whenever I go to his place, I was there all the time, we'd have to go in the barn and, water the horses and stuff like that. And these dirty bastards, my friend always says, Reg, don't get between them. He goes, if you see their heads together, he says, put their heads apart, they're going to do something dirty to you. And these freaking, the two Belgians would always do this. I'd get between them, and they'd do that to me. They'd sandwich me down, I'd go, right? And they never kicked me, but I always see when I'd get behind them, I'd walk tight to the wall, because you could see one always kind of like lifting the hoof a bit, because they were kind of unsteady. Like, these were work horses. They weren't pets. You couldn't ride them, anything like that. And my friend's father was a bit stern with them. Not abusive, but he was stern with them, right? So these horses, you'd have to show them who's boss right away. Um, my buddy and I, we'd always get sandwiched against the wall or whatever. And when a horse does that to you, it means they don't trust you. They're testing your boundary, right? So we always walk. My buddy was always like, "Yeah, stay outside the kicking ranges." I mean, these horses. They kick you, you're dead, right? They're going to break something for sure. But we hooked them up a few times. Pulled the wagon around, whatever. And that was fun with his dad, and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, go do this and do that with the horses and whatever, and bring them in, whatever. And other than that, they were good. Now, my aunt, she still has an old mare. It's a Canadian. This horse is the nicest horse. She's big, real big, beautiful horse, black mane, dark brown, nice white strip right on the face there, just broad shouldered, powerful looking horse, super friendly. Um, I think it's still alive. That horse, never rode it or anything like that. My uncle never really worked it. They just more had it because they had all the cows and might as well have a horse, right? And I think if she's still alive, my aunt just raved about her. It's like, so yeah, it's like the best horse they ever had or whatever. Not like Yuck Yuck the bull. That bull scared the shit out of me, my cousin. That was the meanest bull ever, and he was huge. So if Yuck Yuck was in the pen, you don't get in the pen. We got charged a couple of times. My cousin, again, I don't know, me and my cousin getting charged by horses and cows or bulls. But Yuck Yuck was the meanest bull. My uncle ended up shooting him because my other uncle ended up shooting him. He was like, that bull's going to kill somebody. He was just mean, and big. Forget how big, what the weight of him was, but it's like his chest was basically hitting the ground. Like he's just powerful animal. But he had a couple of other horses in there at that time. They were riding horses. My cousin and I were going to go riding one day, but we ended up doing hay instead or something like that, and we never went riding. And then another time, after that, I think the next time I would ride a horse was with Wanda. Wanda. My cousin, or my friend, the one with the Belgians, Rob, his cousin Wanda. First time I met her, I was just like, my jaw was on the ground. She was, pretty blonde girl, horse girl, super shape. Yeah, country girl. What was not to like, right? And really fun to be around. Like she was she was a hoot to be around. She was a little older than us, and she was always like razzing us and teasing us and stuff like that. She always caught us when we were looking at her boobs. So, you're looking at my boobs again, aren't you? And she would say that even if we weren't, just to make us blush, right? Well, not her cousin, but yeah, her cousin Rob was like, he was my best friend at that time. He's like, yeah, just ignore her. She's like that. Yeah, she just likes to torment people. Like, she likes to torment the boys. But she was a lot of fun. But anyway, we went and we worked on the asparagus farm, picking asparagus, and the deal was we could go cool off in the pool and whatever. So we went and cooled off in the pool. And anyway, Wanda came back. She's like, "You guys going in the pool?" Well, yeah, like we're all dirty. We actually had to shower off with the outside hose before we could go in the pool, which we kind of got gypped on that one. We worked for 4 hours just to go spend an hour in the pool, right? But whatever. But she came back with a horse and a couple other because they had a riding rental. And I remember yelling at people like, "Walk your horses up the hill." She was a freaking people. We always tell them you got to walk the horses the last way up the hill. Walk your horses. Yeah, like horse people. Trust me, they won't let you abuse their horses. And she was a very good. Her and her dad were very. I didn't know them that well, but you could tell like, no, you don't abuse their horses. You might be a paying customer, but they'll pull you off the horse if and kick you out of there and keep your money too. It's like, oh yeah. But anyway, Wanda's like, she's like, "Reg, you ride horses?" I said, "I've been on them once or twice." She goes, "Okay, you and Rob." The problem is Rob was like 6'3" at 15 years old. Like he just this ginormous kid. Like, and he wasn't like scrawny. He was a big boy. He was over 200 pounds, right? And he's still a big man to this day. He's a trucker now. I haven't seen him quite a few years. I hope he's doing well. But anyway, the three of us went out went on a free horse ride. So we went to the pool, rode the horse, and I was on a gray horse, spotted gray horse. I forget, I don't know what they would call it. I couldn't tell you what type of horse it was, just because it was a gray horse that could have been like, again, a Heinz 57, right? And there's no pictures of it or anything like that. But we rode those horses around. I know it was a mare that I was on, and she said, no, she goes, this is like the tamest horse. She goes, this horse just doesn't run. Like this horse, she goes, cannons could go off beside her, steady as a rock. Like just nothing spooks this horse, unless it's like a bear or something, right? So anyway, we rode around for maybe about half an hour or whatever, and walking the horses up the hill, and the horse, like, she was slow. My horse was kind of slow walking up the hill. She wasn't that young horse either, eh? So I'd like pet her and whatever. She'd do one of those things, as a petting her, like kind of like stay close to you and whatever. She just liked to have people around. And then we put them in the barn. And oh, you rode the horse? Yeah. Now you can clean up the stable. Her dad, come to think of it, her dad really freaking milked us. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're going to pick asparagus to spend an hour in the pool. You're going to go on a 45-minute ride, and you're going to clean the barn for another 3 hours. We got screwed. But it was fun. It was fun. That's probably the last time I rode a horse. And my free horse showed up about 4 times in front of the yard here. That was Jessica's horse that kept getting away. That was a really nice horse. I remember I looked out. It was just after a thunderstorm. And I said, Dad, did you buy a horse? He's like, no, why would you ask me that? I said, look, we got a free horse. And they're like, oh, it's probably Merlin's. Okay, so we called Merlin. Merlin did some of those. He goes, yeah, Jessica's horse got out again. So that horse always ended up in our front yard. So I guess it must have liked our grass or whatever. So Jessica would come along, Merlin, Jessica would come along and ride it back, put the saddle on it, ride it back. And that was the last, kind of horse endeavor here. I never got to ride it, but I was like, I was kind of like, if a horse keeps coming here, and you make friends with it, at some point, it's like, technically it becomes your horse, right? So I've always liked the idea that there's a girl halfway through the town. She's got a couple of really nice horses. Her and her daughter are always out on the horses, stuff like that. And, I entertain the idea of getting, but it's just like, if you're not independently wealthy, don't get a horse. It's as simple as that. Even there's some horses that are easier to take care of than the others. Like Barney never got sick. Barney, I don't think ever saw a vet in his life. He was just a tank of a horse. But everybody else that I talk about horses, $3,000 vet bill, whatever. So I've been, since I've been down here, cleaning out the stable and stuff like that. Like when I walk in there, my brain goes, there's a horse here, 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 and here. Right? Because when I was a kid, Barney was always in there, right? So yes, there's junk in there, but when I see that all emptied out next year, I'm gonna be like, well, if I got to fence off everything anyway. I'm not going to take care of people's horses. The way the land's set out now, my cousin's there, my aunt's there, my aunt and uncle's there, and my dad's here, my aunt and uncle's here, and then my cousin right beside. The only place I could really have the horse is I'd have to basically resurrect a whole fence the whole way in the back field, which I'm not opposed to that, but to get from here to that pen would be we're talking like, 100 acres of fencing. You know what I mean? And if I have to put that in by hand, you know what I'm saying? Like that would be, I would just follow the old fence line and whatever. I could do a smaller corral or something like that, but a horse needs an area where it can run, you know what I mean? But on the other hand, I could always just put the pen here, but then I have to take even if I just walk the horse, like I ride him once in a while and just walk him all the way through the property, whatever. And, if he's tame enough, I'll just take him, just let him run in the back field as long as he comes back to me, right? But that's a lot of quality time with a horse. You know what I mean? That's a lot of quality time to get a horse to do that. Like most horses, like Barney, if he was on the bridle and you let him go, well, he was gone for the day. He'd come back to you whenever he good and felt like it, right? So yeah, but it would be nice to be able to afford a horse that I'd ride maybe to the store and back once in a while, ride up in the mountain there a little bit. That I think that'd be cool. Get two horses. I could take my nephew up there and on the horses. Walk them up the hill and then not work like I wouldn't take them up the skidding trail, riding them up. That'd be too hard. The horse would do it, but I'd walk them up that trail. You know what I mean? When you get to the top, take them up through the hardwood bush on the horse. That'd be nice. It'd be really nice. You know what I mean? And then out in the field, just let the horse run. Play around with the horse, do tricks with it, stuff like that. I think that would be really really nice to be able to do. It's just to be able to do it right. If I had a horse, I'd probably get a buggy instead of ride the horse. Because I don't want a big horse, right? Like I want something like a riding horse should be a sturdy horse. It should be what they call a Rocky Mountain horse. Like the legendary Rocky Mountain horses. Nice, big, hefty. You can put two people on the back. Horse is fine. Can climb through mountains. Those horses built the frontier, right? Not that I could ever afford an Arabian horse, but the nicest horse in my area right now. Okay, I already mentioned it. Okay, my buddy Paul that I work with all the time, his stepdaughter's husband, which I guess would be his stepson-in-law. I don't know how it works. She's a horse girl. She's always been a horse girl. Growing up, she was a horse girl. She will always be a horse girl. And she has a paint. It's a nice horse. It's black with white. The white on it, and it's blotchy. All that. There's a bit of brown in there. Really, really nice looking horse. Really nice looking horse. But her husband Paul's horse has like a silvery. He's kind of like this color here, but when the sun hits him, he's got like a shine to him, and he's such a beautiful horse. And everybody says that, so everybody goes by and they see Jade's horse, and they're like, "Oh, that's your horse? Yeah. Oh, wow, that other horse, is he ever nice?" She's like, "Why does everybody like Paul's horse and not my horse?" Right? But that horse is just a beautiful, beautiful horse. And Paul was telling me about it. He rides it. Again, it's not the stockiest of horse, but a nice size riding horse, not too big, not too small. I forget how old he said it was. I can't remember. I believe it's a mare. I can't remember. But anyway, it's just like when I imagine myself on a horse that I own, that's what I imagine. I'm like, that is a gorgeous horse, especially when the sun hits. It's just got this nice shine to it. Oh, what a beautiful horse. And I'm just like, that horse has kind of been on my mind whenever I think of horses. That's the one I think of, or Barney, right? So, and I'm like, a horse like that, like they don't have like a top tier stable for these horses. And they keep these horses, they don't even have hydro there. They don't even have hydro there. They live pretty Spartan. They got a couple of sheep, they got a few pigs, they got whatever, chickens and whatever. And they got these two horses. And it's like they ride them all over the place every now and then just to get them out of the corral and the pen, because there's not a big place for them to go. Because Paul doesn't own a lot of acreage there, a couple acres, enough to run a couple of horses, right? But like to really let them out and enjoy themselves, you got to take them a little bit further. But he's way back in the bush, so the nice thing is anytime they want to go anywhere, they got miles and miles of trails they can go on. In the summertime, they can take all the snowmobile trails or whatever, just go for miles and miles and miles, right? Or kilometers, however you want to look at it. But no, that is probably the nicest horse in my area. My crazy horse experience. Okay, next to the Belgians and the Clydesdales that my buddy had years ago when we were teenagers. Like other than those horses kind of like bunt me, my friend Junior, his ex has a farm just up the road a bit. and they had a stallion there. That thing was insane. How it hasn't killed anybody yet, I don't know. But there was that horse. They got it, and again, they got it cheap and free. And there's a lot of these horses are problem horses when they're that cheap, right? And he's a stud. So, like, I mean, yeah, he's not fixed, right? So that horse is nuts, you know. There's an old mare up there, and when she walked by me, we were in the barn, and she's a big horse, a big brown horse. Not sure what she is, but she's big. She's like a really long, big horse, big, powerful horse. Not a Clydesdale or like that. She's not big, huge hooves like that, but she's just a big horse. She's probably about 18 hands. Like she's big, right? And when she went by me, I could tell like she was kind of had like a bit of a, you know, like not really. Her eyes weren't sketchy, but like you could tell she was a little uneasy about new people. And when she walked by me in the barn, she kind of like belly checked me, if that makes sense. So I'm standing here, and she did one of these things to me, and she did it to me twice. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going near that horse. That horse is definitely nervous around me, right? And so I'm like, I'm not walking behind that horse because that horse is going to kick me. You know what I mean? Like you could just read the language, right? I tried to pet her a little bit, and you could tell she was a little bit too nervous. So I was trying to get her from the other side of the corral or whatever. So it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll just back off. So those were the crazy horses there, right? The mare, she could ride it. I don't think Junior ever rode that horse, the one that checked. I can't remember what you call it. Probably still alive, probably still up there. Those horses, like that stud, you wouldn't ride that. That thing would kill you, you know. And then there was a colt there as well, and you know, there was a donkey and whatever. The donkey was fine. The donkey was like super friendly. But anyway, yeah. So that big mare, you could tell like she wasn't like a people person. You know, she was very unsure. And then, of course, like I said, the stud, you didn't go near him. He was in his own pen, and he was up on his back feet every 10 seconds. Like, this horse was gone crazy. He was going nuts. I'm like, that horse, you better do something with that horse. He's going to kill you. I remember telling my buddy, I was like, you better watch that. He's going to kill you. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, sometimes he'll start bucking and leaping, and you can't go near him at all. I'm like, this is a dangerous horse. And then, the last time I was offered to ride horses. I miss my buddy Chum, God rest him. It must be 2 years now that he's gone. Anyway, Chum and I, you guys probably remember seeing him on my previous channel quite a bit, and whatever. Chum ended up on his ex there. She's a horse person. Same thing. Couldn't really afford to take care of the horses properly and train them and stuff like that. So she ended up with horses that were a little bit more sketch. There was 3 of them. They sold off one after Chum and her moved in together, and then they kept the other 2. But of course they kept the 2 craziest ones. So Chum gets this idea one day. He's going to ride his horse, the 2 horses here, one tethered to the other one, right? And this is something Chum would do, right? And he comes up my driveway with these 2 horses. And I come out, and he's like, Reg, let's go for a horseback ride. I'm like, I said, the fact, and he was on the crazier, the two horses. I said, the fact that you are even on those horses, I said, those things are crazy. I said, I'm not getting on those horses. And I knew the other one was the mare was more, you know, calm of the 2, right? So anyway, we tie up the horses. I'm petting the horses, whatever. His horses goes a little bit sketchy, so whatever. I don't try to freak him out too much. I kind of let him come to me, and I'm able to pet him, whatever. He's rideable, but he's got an attitude problem, right? So anyway, I'm talking to Chum for about a half an hour. He goes, you sure you don't want to come riding with me? I said, he goes, I got saddled up for you and everything. I'm just like, because I know these horses are not, you know, these are the reject horses from the riding schools that people didn't spend enough time with. I haven't spent enough time with either of these horses. Something bad's going to happen. And sure enough, he got thrown from his horse, the crazier of the two horses. This horse was almost not black, but dark brown. Nice horse, not a big horse, but man, he was crazy horse. Anyway, so I know these horses were not, they were, they weren't familiar enough. Like you'd have to spend at least a week or two with them just to make, get them used to you before you should ride them. They were used to him, but they weren't used to me. So these horses weren't like, you wouldn't put a kid on it or anything like that. So anyway, I tell him, no, I'm good. He goes, you sure? I was like, I'm sure, Anyway, he goes to get on the horse. The horse takes a step forward. And remember, one horse is tethered to the other, right? Well, and I got it on video too. I don't know if it's on this channel or on the other channel. Oh, I miss it. But anyway, his horse just starts walking. He can't get on him. The other horse, they're both going down the laneway here. And I'm laughing so hard. And he's like I can't even offer him help to, he's like, whoa, he's in the snow. And the horses are just dragging him along. It was the funniest thing ever. Like, he's like just trying to, he finally got him stopped at the end of the thing and got on him, whatever, rode him back. But it was just so funny to watch the horses dragging him down the friggin' laneway. Oh, I'll never forget that. Yeah, so God rest Chum. Next time I would see Chum on that horse, I go down the laneway, I just turn. I'm at about a little bit past where the trailer is. And I could hear something like a horse, faintly, right? And I could hear a little bit. And anyway, Chum was living there at the time, so about halfway through the town, right? Him and the missus were living there at the time. I just come around here, whoa, you bastard! There's that horse diving into the snowbanks and like snow flying, Chum on the back, flying up and down. I'm just like dying laughing. I was like this. And he finally gets him slowed down, and they can hear him cursing at the horse. They gets him back and whatever. And I'm laughing. I get there and I see him putting the horse into the stable, and I'm laughing. I said, "Did you go for a little bit of a ride there?" He goes, "The fucker just took off on me." And he goes, "He wasn't slowing down, and it was like right on the highway, right?" And he was. I said, "I saw him hitting like all the freaking banks. Like the horse was like bashing the banks. And he just goes crazy like that." And it's like, I said, and that's why I won't ride him. And 2 minutes after the horse is up to me, and I'm petting him. He's fine. He got it out of his system. He was just that horse. He was that kind of horse, right? They eventually got rid of the horses, and then, after they broke up or whatever, I guess all the horses were gone and everything like that. But no, I toyed around with those horses a bit, but I never got too close to those horses. I never walked directly behind them. These horses were a little bit nervous. Even the mare, she was a little bit nervous, but he was definitely a nervous horse. So it's like, yeah, they got them for cheap, but those horses needed a lot of training and stuff like that. So that's what I mean. Like, if you're going to get something like that, to get a horse that's going to be, well trained and mild mannered, ready to go, and even at that, you still got to bond with the horse and everything. You're still looking at probably a couple of years with the horse just to get to know the horse, and baby steps there. So I think a lot of people, what they do is just riding school stuff, right? And then there's just the time to take care of a horse. So like my friend Ricky there, when he moved in there, all the horses are gone now. They had a horse corral and a horse school right neighbor there. And they also boarded horses. So they had like 30 horses out in the field, all types. People that just couldn't afford to take the time to take care of them. So they'd hire, the previous guy had a hired hand taking care of all these horses. So when my buddy James moved in there, they got rid of most of the horses except for like 3 or 4. And they're gone now. But his wife, she's big into the horse. I did their wedding photos and all that. But yeah, no, she was big into the horses, but they got rid of them all. So they just didn't have the time to take care of them, right? So I'm like, okay, no problem. But they were nice horses. Uh, I never even attempted to try to go ride them or anything like that. But these were horses they were safe to ride, right? So that's kind of my horse experience. Whatever. So I got an idea. Like for example, whenever Chum would have the hooves cut, whatever. I saw how like they'd get people there, and I'd be there with Chum and whatever, and we'd be helping them out, and they'd get the groomers to come in and check out all the horses, make sure everything was they're healthy. So Chum's horses were taken care of, well fed and stuff like that, but it was costing them so much a month just to take care of these, like at least $300-400 a month just to take care of these horses. And these were again not pedigreed horses by any stretch of the imagination, right? So for me to get a horse, I'd have to have a stable hand, right? I'd have to have somebody helping me, right? So what does that cost? You know what I mean? You're employing somebody to help take care of your horses, unless I'm independently wealthy, which I'm not. And then at that point, even when you go somewhere, you have to have someone take care of your horses. So I don't think I would like to do that, but I know I can't afford to do that, but I wouldn't mind going on like a horse, go horseback riding again, but to go with like maybe my nephew or something special like that, because anytime I seem to have been doing something with horses, I was usually with somebody else. And I've always said this, like time and time again, that, like if you think of your favorite times in your life, the question is not where were you, or what were you spending money on, or what did you buy? It's always who are you with, right? And that's what's important. Well, I think that's one of the things that I could see the value in is, group ride on horses with family members or friends or whatever, or even just quality ride with you and the horse. You know what I mean? Like I can dig that. I mean, I would love to be up in the mountain, going through the hardwood hills there with a horse, or take it up Bamagilly Mountain. Except I'd have to be very careful that the horse doesn't twist the leg, because that's 3,600 feet up. And not straight up, but it's steep enough. I'd have to walk the horse to the top, ride it around the orchard field, stop at the Ert, John's Ert there. He's got a little, called Cupcake House, call it an Ert. Stop there. John said, yeah, the apple field, the bears pretty much got all the apple trees destroyed, but he says you can get a few. He goes, there's still a few of them that are still good up there. But it's just the lookout point. To be on a horse on the lookout point would be very, very cool. As long as the horse didn't decide to go down the side thing, then you're like Young Guns. Ante. Wow, what did you to make that horse go crazy like that and go down the side of the hill? I was fun. What does ante mean? It means stop. Yeah. That was good. That was a good movie. Young Guns. Yeah, that was a pretty good movie. Yeah, it means stop. Horse kept going. Yeah. Chavez. Yeah, Chavez go to the Spirit Horse now. Goes with Spirit Horse now. Yeah. That was pretty good. It was a pretty good movie. Billy, you're not a god. Yeah. Make you famous. Yeah. That was it. Young Guns was good. Yeah. But yeah, no, getting a horse is something that, if it could be in the cards, it would be something I think I would enjoy. But so much work. That'd be like 5 years down the road to be able to get that. Because, the next 3 years, I'm just going to be clearing the darn property here, let alone putting in fencing on the whole family land. That would be a bit much. It would be something cool, if you could pay somebody to do it, but it'd cost you thousands of dollars. But, fence posts aren't that, I got to put it in anyway for the pig and got to make a chicken coop again and all that stuff. A little Shetland pony or something like that. Yeah, they'd probably be a little easier to take care of, but not by much. Goats, horses, they're expensive to take care of. Cows, they're expensive to take care of, but usually you get something out of a cow, either a shit ton of meat or dairy, right? I'd like to have one cow, just one Betsy, or two Betsies, Betsy B, Betsy Boo, and just milking cows. That's it. 2 dairy cows. That'd be it. But the problem is like I don't really want dairy cows because, or cows because they're too close to the water. Like nobody drinks out of that water, but my well's right there, right? And if I don't want to be drinking salmonella. A horse would be bad, but cows, they're really potent. But it would be neat to have 2 cows, though, like just two Betsies, milking cows. That's it. Goats, a bird sanctuary, stuff like that would be really cool. Like pheasants and stuff. I could build all that. I could build a huge bird sanctuary for sure. Get peacocks. Everybody around here would hate me with a passion if I got peacocks. They are the noisiest bird in human existence. And it's not nice noises either. The pheasants aren't bad. And the nice thing about pheasants is if the quail and pheasants, the nice thing about those is that you can release them to the wild. They're indigenous to here, so it doesn't matter. And I'd like to do that, to have them in the area, and then you can go hunt them, right? You can get different chickens. Chickens are like the easiest to take care of. And I'm definitely gonna have like maybe 2 or 3 laying hens. Like I don't want a lot of animals. I want a couple of animals, But like I'd like to have like mini goats, But the thing is, you have to understand when they say mini, they mean it's just slightly smaller than the normal size one, right? So the cost of taking care of mini goats versus regular goats is probably about the same. It's just I like smaller animals because they're cuter. You know what I mean? Like a pot-bellied pig. Like a mini pig. There's no such thing as a mini pig. Like a pot-bellied pig, a mini pig is going to grow up to 500 pounds to 800 pounds if you let them. You know what I mean? They can get pretty big. So I'll probably just have meat pigs. And that's about it. I looked at the pen. Like I don't think a pig could go through the wall of the barn, but they might. I might have to reinforce that a bit. But I got enough materials around here that I can do that. And then I can just, just make sure that the pig fenced in good enough that he doesn't root his way out, whatever. But I'd like to have a nice pig, just a nice pig, pig. Get him say around June, slaughter him around August, October, or what? Well, probably more like the end of August. Around that 140 to 180 pound is probably the best eating pig. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. Now we've raised pigs up there. There was pigs down here. Usually my grandma and grandfather always usually had 2 or 3 pigs. I mean, you got to understand, like this was a farm back in the day, right? But horses would be neat to have. A horse, but I think 2 horses would be ideal, for company, or like to have 1 horse with no other barn animals around, or a dog or whatever. And I mean, there's no point in me getting another dog. There's enough dogs around. Timeshare dogs around here that Marley's over at our place, but I would like to have a nice dog here. There's a dog, I can never think of the breed name, but it's basically the same color as this, like the beigeish part there. Again, that horse is almost the same. It would be like a matching dog to a horse if I could ever find a horse that color, and just find the most quirkiest, friendliest horse ever, and just say, okay. Train him up, make him a comic, and then maybe get like a little donkey or a mule or something like that. A mule, they say a mule's a lot easier to take care of because it's just, it's, if you go one way, you get a mule. If you get a donkey and a horse breed, if it goes one way, it's a mule. If it goes the other way, it's an ass, right? And then they're both sterile from there, I think. Right, so a donkey would be a nice little animal to get. They can be extremely affectionate, very, very friendly. Like a baby donkey is like the cutest thing you'll ever get. Way back in Kaywood, that farm there, they take so good care of like when you meet these people, you're just like, oh my God, these people are like such hillbilly farmers, right? But they take so good care of their animals, they don't even have them gated in. They're just like, they're all over the road. They're, because the road just happens to run through their farm. It's been like that for 100 years. They ain't going to stop now. They got cows, everything. They got some areas fenced off or whatever, but most of the animals just stay around the house, around the yard. They got a donkey there. You go say hello to it. It comes up and it hugs you. It's like the cutest animal. It's like, I want to kidnap this donkey. Cute little donkey and stuff like that. And they're just really, really friendly animals, but they're well taken care of. You know what I mean? None of them are nervous or anything like that. But anyway, yeah. One could dream. Having my own horse, ride it around. That would be a fun hobby, I think, but an expensive one. I have too many hobbies and not enough money to begin with. So, again, maybe it could be something 5 years down the road. Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, yeah, there we go. I guess I'll leave it at that. So it's something to talk about today, something different. There we go.